Hello everyone, I'm Leviatros, and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be reviewing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Now before I get into it, as usual, I won't be going into any spoilers or things that I wouldn't want to know myself before seeing the film, so I'll have a very clear transition when we get into spoiler territory. But to give you my expectations for the film, when I first heard the movie was announced, I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting, but I probably won't see it because I don't really watch a lot of kids' movies, especially if I have to go to the theater for it. But as I saw more trailers and seeing that Seth Rogen was the writer on it, I kind of warmed up to the movie as it got closer to release. So I decided to give it a shot and go see in the theater. I will say that the beginning is not great. There's a lot of jokes that are just like, it's them like using slang that feels very dated already. And a lot of jokes that are just like stringing together celebrities or pop culture references. And like, that's kind of the joke. And that's it. By the end of the film, I was like, okay, this is a pretty good movie. I'm glad I saw it. Even if the first 30 minutes or 45 minutes is a bit rough. I felt like once we passed the 45-minute mark or so, the jokes were really consistently good, and after an hour is just like solid jokes through the end. I think it's still worth seeing, and during that time, it's not all just bad jokes, everything's a miss. It's kind of like 60% jokes that are just kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of not great. And then like 10% that are just kind of like fine. And then the other 30% are like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty good. Just know that there's going to be some jokes that I didn't find really enjoyable. But as it goes on, it gets better. And by the end of the film, I was like, all right, this is a pretty good movie. So hopefully that helps adjust your expectations or let you know if this is a movie that you would enjoy watching or not. But without further ado, this is going to be the transition to spoiler territory. So if you want to see the movie yourself and don't want to have any story points or jokes spoiled, then stop watching now. So with that out of the way, before I move on to the positives, I did want to wrap up the negatives that I had with the film. The first thing that really stood out to me the most and kind of made me wary of the rest of the film was the jokes about stuff that was just kind of like stringing together celebrity references. Like when they're talking about like, oh, it'd be cool to get lunch with Tom Brady, or Guy Fieri seems like a chill guy, and I've always wanted to go to Flavortown. And stuff that's like, oh, Adele can really hit those high notes. It's kind of like, are they getting paid to say this? So those jokes like just didn't really work because they didn't feel like jokes, and it felt like the reason they are included in the film kind of had more of a greedy reason for it. So it definitely didn't give a good first impression of the movie. But as I said, as it went on, those jokes fell off. It also threw me off hearing the Turtles use slang like Riz and Sus. It just feels so tied to our current time that it feels like it's going to get dated very quickly. One thing that kind of threw me off being familiar with the cartoon is that usually Donatello's the lame one, and Leonardo's kind of the one you want to be.
Yeah, so I guess I'm Leonardo, the little katana dude.
No, definitely not.
You're not Leonardo. Don't compliment yourself so much.
Nice try, though. You're definitely Donatello. Oh, he's so Donatello.
You're so Donatello.
What? Donatello was like a nerd, and like he's like a party pooper.
Yeah.
But this movie kind of flips that. Although by the end of the movie, Leonardo does build up a better reputation for himself. The teenage part of Mutant Ninja Turtles is definitely highlighted, and they also make April O'Neil a teenager, which helps the love interest part for Leonardo feel a bit more normal, but overall it still kind of feels like.
Guys, let me ask you this. Do you sometimes wish that April was a turtle?
Whoa, definitely.
Conceptually, that works for me.
I've been trying to talk her into an interspecies relationships for months now.
Raph, chill, man.
It's
The biggest problem is she can't hold her breath long enough, you know?
Well, okay, coming up.
But one other thing is that some of the jokes I didn't really enjoy, and they get called back multiple times. So the two main jokes that stood out to me that didn't really work the first time and they keep calling back was about the milking their blood, which was kind of funny the first time, but then they kind of just keep mentioning it. And the other one was when they do the New York accents, which just doesn't feel like a really clever joke, and there's not really a lot added onto it. And then they do it about two or three more times. But I will say it was reassuring that eventually they do kind of do a twist on both of those jokes, with the villain's plan actually being to milk them for their blood, which was pretty funny to actually see happen, that it is a real thing. And then Splinter later on being like, I told you not to go in the real world, you're gonna get milked for your blood, and you did. And it's like, oh yeah, it is like just the absurdity that actually did happen. And the jokes about the New York accent, there's the part where they're like, "Hey April, like film us so that people will like us," and they start like doing that joke and just kind of like doubling down on it. And then she's like, "Yeah, this isn't gonna help people like you." So I did feel like even though I didn't enjoy the jokes as they were happening, it did have a little bit of a payoff that made it a lot more forgivable. But that's not to say that until an hour in, there's not going to be any good jokes. There were some scenes that I really enjoyed, particularly the flashback to Splinter's origin story, and like all of that was pretty good. And like, just seeing them, and he's like, yeah, there was this ooze, and you guys get turned into babies because you were babies, but I got turned into an adult rat because I'm an adult when it happened. If you think about it, that makes sense. It's kind of like, okay. Now, while the jokes were a little bit hit and miss, and over time became really strong, consistent hits, I felt like the action scenes were something that were consistently good. I felt like they took good advantage of the animation medium. That montage of them tracking down the four crime members that they know of, and the action scenes cutting between them with the people getting switched out seamlessly was really cool. The chase scene with the van was also one of my favorite scenes from the movie, which also is nice to see that their turtle van is not in the movie itself, but the way that the pizza van that they take is colored is very clearly an homage to the original vehicle. So it was a nice little nod to see. But that chase scene and them playing the song that is iconic with that He-Man animated video was pretty entertaining. And while they're talking about hitting the brakes, and it seems like, okay, it's about to sync up with the song, and then the song kind of like escalates without them actually hitting it yet. I was like, oh, okay. I kind of felt like that was a missed opportunity. But then when it cuts and it's the lizard saying what's going on at the same time, I was like, okay, it was a little bit more of a wait, but it paid off well. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has a broad cast of interesting characters. I was glad that we got to see as many as we did in this film. That's only about 97 minutes total. One of my favorite characters from the original 80s cartoon is Baxter, who's the fly scientist hybrid, and that's mainly because his origin story is basically exactly the same as the 1987 film The Fly, which is my favorite horror movie of all time. So I was a little disappointed to not see him in this film, although there is a fly character, but given that the movie's 97 minutes and they do tell a full story, I understand that if they did the origin story for every character, it would take too long and not really be as tight of a film. So all of the mutants having the same origin story and all of them being there ready to go, I think was the right choice. And despite the character not being the same Fly character from the cartoons, I actually did end up liking Superfly quite a bit. Him being voiced by Ice Cube was a bit of an interesting choice, and there's times that he says lines that I'm like, is that a quote from an Ice Cube song? And the first instance I noticed this was when he kicks the door open and he goes, 6 in the morning, police at my door. And I was like, I feel like he's quoting one of his songs. And there's another instance where his team turns against him and he goes, they smile in your face, but the whole time they want to take your place. And so I was like, okay, that feels like another Ice Cube lyric. And after looking into it, it's actually from a 1972 song called Backstabbers by the OJs, but still interesting to hear. And the previous lyric about 6 in the morning, police at my door, is from the song 6 in the morning. But just getting to drop random Ice Cube quotes in a movie seems pretty fun, so now it makes me want to do it. I really enjoyed seeing the rest of the cast of mutants that they have, with Paul Rudd's character being someone I didn't recognize from the cartoons, but being one of the most enjoyable performances in the movie. It was nice to see one of the frog characters named after the different types of conquerors, with Genghis Frog, voiced by Hannibal Buress, which was a nice little cameo to see him in. And Ray Fillet was actually a character I hadn't seen in the cartoon, and with him singing so frequently, I was thinking, like, okay, I guess that's a reference to the cartoon that he sings a lot, but I think it's more of just a joke that he's voiced by Post Malone. Now, coming towards the final battle in the movie, I thought it was really well done. Ever since seeing Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's really made me appreciate movies that the resolution to the conflict is not simply to defeat the enemy, and if you win, then it's like, alright, we're good, everything's fine. But instead, finding a way to kind of relate to them and compromise and seeing them as people rather than just an obstacle to get decimated. So I enjoy that this film, instead of having the turtles just fight the whole gang of mutants and that be the resolution, instead trying to relate to them and realizing that they have a common ground, I think it was a lot more satisfying to see. Also, a lot of the mutants in the gang are actually allies of the turtles at points throughout the cartoon, so I felt like it was a nice nod to the source material. The scene where they all fight together and you get to see all of them using their powers or abilities in interesting ways to work together, I felt like made the fight scene a lot more unique and enjoyable. I really enjoy the climatic final battle though, and the concept of Superfly getting merged with whatever animal he touches, I thought was a really cool concept to see. Sometimes movies will be comedies throughout them, and then when it gets to the end, it just kind of drops the jokes and focuses on being action, and sometimes it's almost necessary. But with this movie, I felt like they did a good balance of comedy and action with the final battle. Like the part where they use the gun that can turn mutants back into animals, and they do like a very dramatic shot and they actually hit him and it just turns one horse back to normal. And Superfly's like, what? That was it? Just one horse? I didn't even need that horse. I thought it was really entertaining without breaking the tension of the scene. When they first mentioned Attack on Titan when they're at the school, it definitely felt a bit of a like cash grab of like, hey, this is a popular IP, you know, maybe you can get some money for referencing them. And then later when they reference it again and say like, oh, he's like a titan and their weakness is on the back of their neck. It's his blowhole. I was kind of like, is this genius or awful? But overall, I feel like it was alright. I feel like a lot of movies would have had the turtles win the fight and then humans go, we accept you now. And it's kind of like, okay, cool, I guess that's concluded now. But this movie having a scene where the humans help out to deliver that vial to them during the battle made it a lot more exciting and engaging because you actually see it happening rather than just saying that the humans accept them now. Going into this movie, I wasn't planning to be emotionally invested, but the movie ending with the locker being updated to say April O Hero was a pretty touching moment. So in conclusion, while I don't think every single part of the movie worked, I think the good jokes outweigh the bad, and the action and combat make it a good enough film that when I got home from the theater, I thought to myself,
I gotta say it was a good day.
that's gonna wrap up my very third movie review. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and if you would like to see more movie reviews, I've already done Barbie and Oppenheimer, so you can get the Barbenheimer experience. But feel free to subscribe if you'd like to stay tuned for more movie reviews or watch me play Persona 4 Golden in real time. But either way, thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time.